leadership, integrity, diversity, service. That's what this club is all about. I want you now to take out your phone and let's take a selfie. Post where you post on Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever it is, Instagram. Let people know what's going on here, Tyler, where you are. Hey, I see that. I see that. Come on, JB, what are you doing?
Yay!
I think Rochelle beat us to the punch because I saw before we even started the meeting, she already did her selfie, so she knows the homework. She knows the drill. All right, be sure to put your phone on silent or airplane mode or whatever. We want to give a big thanks to Vicki Conway, the pianist. She always does a superior job. I'd like to call forward Rochelle and Bill Pascal for the pledge and the song and the introduction and the invitation. Rochelle.
And I'm glad you got your feet lowered. They're nice. Thank you. Thank you. Well, can we all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? Yes, my favorite. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say can you see our Lord's early light, what so proudly we hail, at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright skies and bright stars, through the perilous night, o'er the ramparts we walk, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the Lord's mercy in air, gave proof in the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank y'all so much. Pascal.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Yes.
Don't anybody give her any caffeine or sugar. Okay? All right, let's all, shall we? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much, as always, for the blessings of the day. We thank you for the United States, for the state of Texas, for the city of Tyler, for the fellowship that we have here, and for Rotary. We pray, Father, your blessings on helping us to accomplish our mission as Rotarians. We ask your blessings upon this food that has been prepared for us. May it strengthen us so that we can better serve you and serve our community. And Father, we just thank you so much for our families. We ask that you be with those who may be ill at this time or bereaved or troubled. We ask, Father, that you help us to do everything we can to be a light in the community and to reflect you and your values. We thank you especially for the blessings that we have spiritually through your Son, Jesus Christ. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to everybody. It's good to see everybody here. Everybody get enough to eat? Okay, good. Let's go around the room. If you're a Rotarian, would you be kind enough to raise your hand? No visit? We got one? Yes, sir. Visiting Rotarian?
Yes.
Who are you?
My name is Seaburn Nesbitt. I'm with Tyler Sunrise Rotary. I think I gotta find somebody to eat dinner with, so we got breakfast this morning. So, I'm a Santa Claus all the way around.
Okay.
I'm here to cordially invite you, although I think there's a conflict with that. Cordially invite you to participate in the annual bicycle bill and assembly for the Angel Troop.
We usually take part in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it will be December the 8th, which I think we've got a part of this for, but it will be December the 8th, in Colorado Methodist Church, 5:30. And we will provide pizza and the other clubs, timber goods and
Okay.
flag service. We will take any donations because we pull it all together, and we,
Okay.
we use the church's, tax ID number, we pay no sales tax, we get at least 10% off of retail.
All right, good to know.
So if you like to participate, I'm just gonna pass this list around and mark it.
Feel free to do so.
Don't need any money at all, today.
Oh, not today. Well, that's a comfort. Thank you.
I have to check, I'm probably good for a few days.
Okay, all right.
Thanks again, and like I said, if you have a conflict, understand. I always ask the question, how many of you remember your first bicycle? Everybody, no matter how old we are, we remember our first bicycle. So what we're doing is we're making memories. We're making memories for kids that don't have as much as kids in our family.
All right, well said, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
All right, any other visiting Rotarians? Okay, well, let's just start with this table. Any visitors here? None there. And what about the table back there? The trouble table is what we call it sometimes.
Why would you say that?
I don't know, Fred. I don't know. What about this center table? Any visitors here? Okay, table over there. What about this table right here in front of me?
Yes, we have my husband here today with us, and our speaker, my son Robert. And I can also introduce his co-speaker, who's sitting at the other table, named Bill.
Okay. Any other guests at this table right here? All right, well, that pretty much wraps it up. Back to you.
Thank you, Bill. Our greeters for today were Rebecca Jones and Greg Polka. Thank you very much for helping to set the tone of this meeting. As I was driving in today, listening to KTVB radio, I thought Jimmy Fallon was coming on, and the announcer made it sound like it. They said, "Oh no, this is Paul Gleiser at KTVB." So he's substituting for Jimmy Fallon, national show we do so for 2 hours. Therefore, we will not have This Week in History. Pam Walters has an additional, I'm sorry, Bill?
I can give you two historical facts. 243 years ago on this day, the Marine Corps was founded. 75 years ago on this day, Kay Tyler, Blackstone Broadcasting, first one of the year, otherwise known as KTVB.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. That's right.
Okay, hello, everybody. It's so great to be here, and thank you all for taking the time to come to Rotary today. But it's very important that we focus today on Polio Plus. We only have this really opportunity once a year, and it's imperative that our club really show up. And by really showing up, that means donating $53 to Polio Plus, which is actually doubling up. So we show up, we double up, and we do our part to eradicate this horrendous disease on the planet. I know I told you all this last week or a couple of weeks ago that polio has done such an outstanding job. We're down to very few cases. Unfortunately, testing has been a problem in some countries like Afghanistan and Pakistan, and there are cases there, but we pray that there will be a day when we can say there is not one case of polio on the planet. And if Rotary stops supporting Plus today, the brains that study this kind of thing say that within 1 year, we would have 250,000 cases on the planet. And it is a terrible, debilitating disease that we do not want to come back and rear its ugly head again. So please, if you would today, write a check, give your credit card, pay cash, whatever you want to do. But we all need to be, I want this club to be 100% as far as supporting Polio Plus. Double up.
Checks to the foundation?
Yes.
Tyler Rotary Foundation?
Yes, please, to the Tyler Rotary Foundation. So let's,
And for every dollar we give the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will match it with $2.
exactly, I was just fixing to mention that if we show up and double up, Bill and Melinda Gates, well, I'm not so sure about Melinda anymore, but Bill for sure is going to double up, and he will double what we give. So, with all of the hundreds of thousands of Rotarians around the world, we're doing our little part, but if everybody does their part, you can imagine how magnificent an impact we can make and finally eradicate this horrible disease. So just cough it up today. It's very important, and I know that I can count on all of your support. We're blessed, so let's do what little we can to bless others. Thank you.
I know that when I paid for my dinner today, lunch today, I made my double up contribution. And I know this strikes me very personally. My grandfather had polio for 58 years. He suffered with that dreaded disease. And every time I could walk a normal walk, I'm very thankful because Grandpa never could. Tonight is the annual fall social for the Tyler Young Professionals Network. It's an 1836 Texas kitchen. It's a come and go affair. I hope as many of you can at least come for a few minutes. It's a way for us to interact and interface with a younger, basically, group of people that really would transition neatly into this club. And I think the more of us they could meet, the more appealing it would be. I really hope that even if it's for like 10 minutes, come by, say hello, press the flesh, introduce who you are. I know there's no wilting flowers in here. You're all energy, go-getters, extroverts and all that. I intend to be there. I really hope. Yes, Bill?
Yeah, QIB is also going to have what they feel is some kind of auxiliary group there also, so there's going to be even more people interacting. We're going to get there at 5 o'clock. Their deal starts at 5:30. We're going to get there early. If y'all want to show up right after work, 5 o'clock.
Thank you. I had neglected to ask about the time, so like 5 o'clock to whenever.
Right. And I'll mention one more thing.
Sure.
I know it's on the agenda. They have our Christmas party on December 7th. We're volunteering to do the annual Salvation Army bell ringing this year. We couldn't do it on the 8th with the other two Rotary clubs because of our Christmas party. We always have two of them in that day. So anyway, it's going to be our club. We're going to be doing it at Dillard's. We're also going to be doing it at Brookshires over on Rice Road. It's going to be Dillard's going to be 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Brookshires going to be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 2 people on each shift, 2-hour shift. So we need really everybody's support on December 7th. So kind of put that on your calendar.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Holly needs your October volunteer hours. Please email them to her. You have her address. Also, and Bill just talked about signing up for the Salvation Army. The Christmas parade volunteers are needed. See the sign-up sheet. The head honcho in this in a lot of ways is Mary Birch. Sign up, talk to her or Holly. It's a huge community event, and it's really known as the Rotary Club Christmas Parade. We're the ones that get this going for the city of Tyler. Our program for November the 17th will be our district governor, Carolyn Franks. And before we get into the introduction of our program, Dr. Sandy Wells, I want you to go ahead and come up here so you're ready to introduce when I finish up. I want Holly Lewis to stand up.
I'm in trouble now. What'd I do? The president called on me. I'm in trouble.
This woman, I cannot tell you how many times she has, how do you say it politically correct? It's covered my posterior in so many different ways and levels, and I get information, and the communication, and I immediately run to Holly. What do I do with this? How do I handle this? And she does it. Also, Holly is one of our former presidents. She was a district manager for the Auto Club in California, which is a very responsible position, as you might imagine. And this club would not function like it does, I know, without your help. I stand on your shoulders, you having been president. I'm very aware of the debt I owe to so many great leaders in this club. And Holly, I'm so thankful you're here in this position at this time during my presidency. And now we have Dr. Sandy Wells to do the introduction.
Thank you so much. So most of you know that I was a federal manager in Washington, D.C. And I would hear so much every time I went out to the field about disparaging comments and the like, about the government and all those federal employees who work in the Washington, D.C. area. And we sometimes forget that there are many excellent public servants who are out in the field. Today, I'm honored to present two of them to you. They're going to make a presentation about something that they're working on that's very important. And it may not be relevant to you right now, but inevitably someone you know may in fact have a need to learn about elder fraud. So, Bill, if you would come up, please. So, Bill Mack has been, he's a Secret Service agent. He was in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Homeland Security. Started his federal career in New Jersey in law enforcement. And you may not think these gentlemen are in law enforcement if they're working in a federal agency, but indeed they are, because they are monitoring and helping to ensure that our laws are being followed and that people are not being taken advantage of.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So he was detailed in the Department of Homeland Security in 2014 to be a briefer to the secretary. So obviously he had to have a lot of presence in order to be working at that level. And he actually had served as a liaison and policy person. And then he came to Tyler in 2018. And aren't we glad that he came to Tyler?
Yes, yes.
He has a bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, which most of us know is a prestigious school in New Jersey, a master's degree from the Naval Postgraduate School, although I did tell him, so, you know, I'm Army. But I told him I would not hold it against him that he went to the Navy Postgraduate School in Monterey. That's rough. And he has a graduate certificate in cybersecurity management from the University of Virginia. I'm assuming you were down in Charlottesville?
Mhm.
Spent a lot of time in Charlottesville myself. Robert. Now, this young man, I am really partial to. Just read the bio, it says no. Robert Wells is my oldest son, and his dad is sitting at the table right over here. So Rob leads the financial litigation group. He is the reason why we came to Tyler. He'd been sending pictures of houses all over and come here, come here. And we one day woke up in Washington because we lived in Virginia since I had been a Fed and Bruce had been an executive at a defense contractor. And we said, what are we doing here? Our whole family, everybody, 4 grandchildren, we need to move to Texas. So he has been there, and I will tell you something, I will also brag on you a little. His group works on financial bad guys. Some of you may have seen the piece in the newspaper about this man who did stolen honor. He was going around saying that he was a veteran, he was a West Pointer, not, and that he had all of these medals and he was taking money from people and saying he was going to invest it for them. And because he had this honorable military background, people thought that was great. Well, Rob led the group that dug into that, and the guy's been put away. So you don't rob people. You don't rob people when you have the Eastern District of Texas group working against you. So yes, so he's DOJ. Robert, in addition to being the father of my 4 grandchildren here, he went to UT undergrad and law school. And I can brag on that. He actually entered from Westlake High School because we lived in Austin then. He had 2 bachelor's degrees and then went to law school there. So for all of you A&Mers, it's okay. He's a UT guy, okay? I don't think I need to say any more to your introductions. We are so honored to have you come here today to talk to us about some of the wonderful things that you are doing to protect us all. So thank
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. And Dr. Wells, thank you very much for the introduction. If I could, I'll start. For those of you who are wondering what the heck is a Secret Service agent doing here to talk about elder fraud, let me explain that first. So the Secret Service, little history lesson, the Secret Service was started in 1865. And it was stood up back then specifically to combat counterfeit currency, which was a major issue in the United States around the time of the Civil War. As the years went on, the Secret Service's investigative mission expanded to many types of investigative things. We were one of the only investigative federal law enforcement agencies in existence at that time. And I know everybody knows us for really protecting the president, but we did not start doing protection on the president and other political leaders until 1901. And obviously now that is a major part of our mission. We protect the president, the vice president, visiting foreign heads of state, and so on, in addition to our investigative mission, which has also expanded significantly. So besides counterfeit currency, we also investigate things like network intrusions, wire fraud, bank fraud, and so on and so forth, which are many of the underlying crimes that make up elder fraud. So that explains why I'm here. We do have an office here in Tyler that covers the East Texas region. My office covers all the way up to Texarkana and Paris, and then down to Palestine and Carthage. So kind of like a rectangle in Northeast Texas. That helps explain why I'm here. We have about a handful of agents that investigate all the things we do here. And if the president or if he ever does come to East Texas, which is a very rare occasion, we do support that when it happens. In addition, agents in this office will support protective assignments throughout the year in other locations as needed. So I explained that.
And I'll just give a brief introduction. So as far as the structure of who does what, Bill and his team will go and investigate cases, and they'll go out and talk to the witnesses. They'll get the leads from financial institutions and a whole bunch of things that we probably won't even talk about and can't talk about. But then they'll bring cases to our office, to the prosecutors to go and bring charges, to evaluate them, to see if there's any holes, to go and run down whatever remaining leads there might be. And then we're the ones who go and bring those things and chase the bad guys down, and charge them, and hopefully at the end of the day get some sort of, aside from the bad guy going away, we also want to try to go and get restitution for the victims of these crimes. That's a big part of what I do, not just in Tyler, but across the entirety of the district. As far as this presentation is concerned, I think just like how the investigation would go, most of it's going to be led by Bill. But keep in mind, it says elder fraud, but the stuff that we're going to be talking about and the things to be aware of, anybody in here could be a target. And that's something to keep in mind. There's an elder fraud initiative that the Attorney General has been pushing, and we've been pushing it and trying to give these presentations for education across the entire Eastern District, not just in Tyler. And a lot of these things we talk about, if you get that random weird text message from a number that you don't know, we're going to talk about some of that, because not just your elderly parents or your kids or whoever. It's kind of a universal thing, but there are certain things that are unique to elder fraud that Bill's going to talk about.
Yes. Okay, so when it comes to elder fraud, I can tell you that based on our experience, we do investigate a lot of different financial crimes here in East Texas. This is our most common thing that we deal with elder fraud, whether it be people are victims or the people are involved somehow in the chain of it. And we routinely receive reports from our partners in the banking industry and local law enforcement about elder fraud cases, and that's often how we begin them. And sometimes victims themselves will contact us directly to report these. But this is basically what elder fraud is: financial fraud that targets seniors. And there's all different kinds of schemes and frauds and scams that we'll talk about. But basically, somebody's targeting a senior because of their age. They feel that that's a vulnerable target for them, that's something that they can exploit, and many scammers will seek out the elderly specifically to do that. So often older people have access to money. They have retirement funds that they're maybe starting to spend. They get a regular income in Social Security benefits and pensions, so they take advantage of that. Social engineering is often what I say is these scammers, they're not necessarily experts in technology or hacking or anything like that they're often perceived. They're really experts in social engineering. This is what they do really well. They know the buttons to push. They know the words to say. They know how to get you to give up your money. They know how to do that. And lots of times people kind of view the victims as maybe being careless or for whatever reason, they're somewhat at fault. But the reality is, if you see these scams, you talk to these victims, you understand how these work, the scammers are experts in what to say and how to get your money out of your pocket and to them in a variety of ways. Let's see. So there's a variety of things scammers will try to do and say to victims to try to keep the ruse going. And once these things start, they're rarely a one-time occurrence. Rarely does a victim just lose their money once or make one-time payment. Unless they figure it out between now and then, the scammer will continue to exploit as many times as they can and get as much money as possible out of the victim. And they'll go as far as they can take it. And they often try to act somewhat with impunity until we come around, hopefully, and find them. So they'll ask you to not discuss it with family or friends or otherwise keep it quiet. If you're speaking to them through lots of times these connections are made on online platforms like Facebook or other social media sites. Lots of times these scammers will then try to move to a different medium, especially text messaging is popular now. We see that a lot, email and so on and so forth. And there's often this urgency to it. It's like a used car salesman will tell you, this car's only here for so many days. And I love used car salesmen, thank you, but the car's only here for you. Who knows, the next guy might come on the lot and buy the car, like you're gone. So there's always some sense of this has to be done now. In text scams, for example, if you're speaking to, and we'll talk a little more about the ins and outs of these, but the text scammer will sometimes give the impression that you're going to lose, somebody's going to exploit your bank account or your computer's going to die or so on and so forth if you don't take care of this immediately right here and now. Or you're going to be in some type of legal trouble immediately if you don't make some type of payment. Payment methods can vary, and this is where it starts to get weird, and this is where a lot of the red flags come up. Money in general should be a red flag in a lot of these scams because lots of times these things don't start out as conversations about money. They start out as social interactions that move into discussions about money. But unlike a real business that would probably charge your credit card for a service or so on and so forth, they may want you to pay, maybe want you to take cash out of your bank account and then maybe mail it to somebody, a different person, not even a business. They may want you to go buy some gift cards at the local drugstore or department store. They may want you to go down to, they will actually tell you specifically where to go. Maybe find a Bitcoin ATM and deposit money into Bitcoin ATM and send it all that way. These are not things that traditional businesses, legitimate businesses or government agencies would ask you to do, but they will. So this is the one we see the most. And this is the one that probably doesn't get talked about nearly as much as it should. Lots of times we talk about more the fad scams, but I've been dealing with this for 20 years. And this is just as common then as it was now. And it's, again, these social media sites where connections are made and people are, they may be vulnerable. They're, especially during COVID, during the pandemic, they were lonely, so on and so forth. So these scams became just as common as ever. But very often these are how the relationships start, and then they move into these romance relationships. Scammers, again, they know what buttons to push, and they don't start at day one. They'll go weeks, do the research, get ready for when they can pop the question about asking for money. So I mean, and I until recently when I started working this again, because I was not doing this for a while, but when I started doing this again recently, I found out how many different dating websites there are. There are a lot of different ones, and every day I feel like I learn about a new one that scammers have figured out a way to exploit. So that doesn't mean don't necessarily go on those websites. There's a problem, but there's red flags that people should always be looking for when they're on them. The stories will vary. Somebody has, you make a romantic connection with somebody, and then all of a sudden they have some problem. They need money now, or maybe some of the common ones we hear about are somebody is in the military and he or she needs to pay a fee to get out of the military so that they can move to Tyler, Texas to get married to you. So stuff like that. Maybe they run some type of business and now they're in trouble in whatever country they ended up in for a little while, and they can't get their goods out of a country, and they need to pay customs fees. That, of course, costs the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And asking to send money, like I said, anyway, cash through the mail, gift cards, and so forth, all kinds of bizarre ways. Or I can't, something like this, I don't have a bank account, so can you send it to such and such? He's a friend of mine in New Jersey. Just mail the cash to him and he'll take care of it. And we'll talk a little bit later about why that's an issue. So again, try to stay secretive, asking for, obviously, everybody knows not to give your bank account information out to anybody, but it's unfortunately, time and time again, we see that today. So all kinds of scams where people, this is going to be, I feel like we're seeing this more and more where people are posing as relatives. One example, recently, one of my agents contacted a victim, and she explained the story where the reason why she was sending somebody money who was a target of our investigation we were conducting, this victim thought that she was communicating with a friend of her grandson, and this friend was telling the victim that the grandson's business was in trouble, and he needed, it was in clips of $80,000, $90,000 at a time. He needed large sums of money to keep the business going, and he was too shy to ask for the money himself. So this scammer who was posing as the friend was able to get this victim to make several transfers to him. And in fact, when we called her, she was on her way to the bank to take out money to do another transfer. She lost well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, this victim. But they try to pose as not even friends of family members, but family members themselves. Time and again, we see incidents where grandparents are contacted by who they believe are their grandchildren on social media, and they don't ever make a phone connection. They just communicate over the online platform, and they don't find out until they've lost quite a bit of money that was never the case. And again, please don't tell this one, don't tell that one, don't explain it. If you go to if you go to Walmart and buy gift cards, don't tell the person at the cash register that you're buying them from me, say you're buying them from something else. So these scams are some of the more heinous ones that we see. These impersonator scams, and these can often be scams where somebody poses to be from the IRS or another federal law enforcement agency, and they'll often throw out the idea that you are somehow potentially in trouble because maybe your car was seen at the scene of some type of crime or something, and now you are facing some type of charge that you need to pay a fee to help this get cleared up. And this becomes very scary for people. This is a very, a lot of intimidation associated with this scam, a lot of threats about people threatening to be arrested and go to prison and so on and so forth. A woman in Marshall who was a janitor, she received a call and she was told that her car was spotted at a scene of a drug transaction, and they traced it back to her, and her social security number was involved and somehow and so forth, and she was going to be charged with this drug crime and go to prison for 20 years. She was told that in order to clear this up, her social security number needed to be repaired in some way, which I know doesn't sound legitimate, but that's what she was told. And she needed to pay a fee to this investigative agency. I believe it was the IRS or something along those lines. Needed to pay this fee in order to clear up her social security number so she didn't risk going to jail. So she went and managed to, she had just retired. She withdrew the entirety of her okay and sent it to the scammer. And it was cash and got cash out of the bank and put it in and mailed it off. And luckily, something in her head pretty quickly because she was able to report it the next day. And it turns out the envelope was, the police department found the envelope at the shipping company. They had not sent it out yet, so we were able to recover the funds. But those are the types of scams we see day in and day out. So a lot of these robocalls you get, lots of times are these types of scams. If you get a robocall, it doesn't matter if you're on the do not call list or not. Obviously, they don't really care about that. It's not a concern to them. But lots of times they are people posing as other agencies. Our office here in Tyler, we get calls from somebody claiming to be from AT&T all the time. We confront them every time, and they continue to call every time. I don't know why they still do it, but they do. Lottery scams are common. These are usually not high dollar losses. And people tend to be, we'll talk about reporting in a little while, but lots of times people don't like to report these because they're embarrassed by these. But we do see a lot of these lottery scams, and a lot of them are out of maybe countries in the Caribbean. They're based overseas, and you're told, oh, you won this lottery in such and such a place. Jamaica is a popular one that we see. You know, if you do not enter the Jamaican lottery, you're probably not going to win the Jamaican.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, people fall for it. And you always have to, in order to get the money, you have to pay a fee. You have to pay $50, $100 for some tax fee, and then once you pay that, 2 weeks later, you have to pay a $50 or something or other, and then it'll start getting up into, well, the truck broke down, so you need to pay to fix the tire on the truck. I mean, all kinds of crazy things. It's stuck now in customs. You need to pay the $10,000 customs fee, and so on and so forth.
Plus,
that's where it starts going.
On top of that, I mean, there's a whole bunch of cockamamie ways that people come up with how to go and pay your taxes or whatever to go and get your lottery winnings. So we've seen cases where, like, go and take $100 bills inside a magazine. So they'll send a magazine with a bunch of $100 bills taped in it and send it off to some person in, like, New Jersey, thinking like, oh, well, it's a secret that you're the winner. There's always some crazy explanation. It's not always just Bitcoin or bank accounts or checks or that sort of thing. It's sometimes crazy stuff like that just to get cash because it's just a thick parcel that's getting mailed off to somebody, so it's not going to get any scrutiny. But the person thinking that they're getting all this attention and that there's some big payoff at the end of the day doesn't have the wherewithal necessarily to think twice and realize, Yeah, if it's too good, if it sounds too good to be true, I mean, it absolutely is.
I always say that scammers will appeal to three emotions, either love, fear, or greed. They'll try to exploit one of those three things, and unfortunately for many of us, it will work, and they will be able to do it.
Who is selling them your phone number and name?
I'm sorry?
Who is selling them your name and phone number?
So a lot of this stuff is very easy in terms of that much. It's very easy to find out, and they can find out way more than just that from almost anybody in this room, if not all of us. A lot of these things, there are subscription services you can sign up for that businesses lots of times will use also, and they're legitimate, where they can get information on you. And then this is a different discussion for another day. But then we have all the information that's available for you on the dark web. So all the businesses out there that have been exploited, hacked, so on and so forth, lots of times that information ends up for sale on the dark web. So you can go onto these websites. I mean, some of them aren't even difficult to access, but you go on these websites, pay $50, maybe get 100 identities. And those are the identities you can then use to try to exploit those people. You can try to use those identities maybe to open up new lines of credit, so on and so forth. And that's how they're getting them. That's the easy part. Is getting them. And if, let's say they buy 100, if they get just one of those, then they've scored.
Yes.
So text scams. This is one of the most common things that we deal with here in East Texas. And these are scams where you're paying a company for some type of antivirus service or so on and so forth. You get a pop-up, either you get a pop-up like this, which directs you to call a phone number, or you Google something and somewhere down in the results there, you get a company's name and number that you call, and they're not legitimate. So tech support scams are probably the most common, where you call and you say, something's wrong with my computer, I think something's wrong, or I got this pop up and I don't know what's going on. And then they'll try to remote access into your computer and maybe get you to log into your bank account, or they'll tell you, oh, I just found this virus in here, and so on and so forth. And they'll have you make payment. They may have you write a check and put on your scanner, and then they'll scan it for you. They'll take all of that, or again, go buy gift cards or mail them a check, so on and so forth. But if you can Google any type of device you have, and there's probably some websites there that'll purport to be from legitimate companies, but they're really overseas, and they're just exploiting your funds. We have victims that we've seen lose into the six figures easily on these tech scams, because what happens is you pay the first time, and then they call you 2 weeks later and say, oh, we're monitoring your computer now, we just found another virus. So now it's going to be $5,000, otherwise your computer is probably going to die today, or the hackers are going to get into your computer and steal all your information and so on and so forth. You're not going to be able to get your pictures, everything. So we see those types of scams, and what we always tell people is, all you need is an antivirus software program that maybe costs you $100, $200 a year at the most. But we see victims pay, again, $60, $70, $150,000 over the course of a few months on these services that they're just being scammed. And these are almost always victims, are almost always elderly.
I'm going to give a quick shout out to Bill and his team, because last year, I think it was last year, or maybe 2 years ago, we found out about some folks who bought a bunch of domain names that looked like Alexa Setup, Alexa this, Alexa that, and they had pictures that looked like they were legitimate. And folks who are not tech savvy would go and Google it. They go and click on one of these things and route them on some website that some Indians bought. And there's ways that when you buy the websites, you can go and block who owns them. So it's hard even sometimes for us to go and figure out exactly who owns these. But we were able to go and reconstruct this, and it was a volume fraud, because it was like the people would go and access, they go and do like the quick little stuff to go and set your device up. But it was, you buy a subscription service for, well, we can do this one time, 1 year service protection for $100. Well, you're not buying anything. They just set up the device that you could have done yourself. Or you can pay $300 for a lifetime service. Well, the volume that they got across the country, we went and seized through forfeiture stuff. We seized and took down those websites because we set up we found our own way to go and go to the courts to go and get it taken down. So we took that down nationwide, but then we get a call not that much longer from Amazon corporate counsel in Washington again. They're like, there's some more, because they're very sophisticated. They're always adapting because with the technology, sometimes it's hard to keep up, and victims don't even realize that they're victims. They bought something for real, and it's a smaller amount that seems reasonable. So, sorry.
Yeah, no, so if you go to those websites, you'll actually see, I don't know if it's still up, I think it may be, but you'll see a logo where it has the Secret Service logo in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Texas, and says, this website has been seized. It's pretty good.
Wow. Oh, I love that.
So investment scams, I'll talk about, this is the scam du jour, if you will, the one that a lot of people are talking about now because it's kind of, it's very new, and it's getting a lot of attention now. It's pig butchering. So it's more or less an investment scam into Bitcoin. So or I shouldn't say Bitcoin per se, cryptocurrency. So basically people are, lots of times, again, it starts as a romantic connection on a online dating website, but it can happen in a variety of you make a connection with somebody, and then they say they offer I have a no-lose investment opportunity for you. This is a great deal of just give a little bit of money, invest just a little bit up front, and let's see how it does. And then these scammers create these fake websites, and then you send them your money usually through cryptocurrency or a wire transfer, and then it's deposited into your quote unquote account, and you see it growing and growing, and your investment's doing well. And then you are encouraged time and again to continue to put more and more in it. It's continuing to grow and grow and grow. And now you're making, 300, 400, 600% off of your initial investment. And then when you say, thanks, but I don't want to invest any more, this is all the free money I have, the money available to invest in this, I'm not going to put money more into this, then it's gone. It disappears. And all your money. And there was never any investment. It was just you sending money direct to a scammer. And pig butchering is what it's called, and it's a very common thing. We get more and more calls about these nationwide, and they're all based on this idea that you're going to make a lot of money, specifically in cryptocurrency. Yeah. So talk a little bit about family. We didn't go into this a lot. In the Secret Service, we don't do it too much with family-related cases, but these are relatively common where family members are often the ones who are exploiting the elderly. I will talk a little bit about what we do with these cases and what we ask people to do. We always ask people to report them to us. It's very important for them to do that, or through the organization called the IC3, Internet Crimes Complaint Center, or local law enforcement, or their bank. We work regularly with the local law enforcement agencies here in East Texas and with the financial institutions, and the information they provide to us is vital in continuing to investigate these cases. Bob, do you have anything more before we go to questions?
Yeah. Again, the nature of these things, you'd be shocked at, like Bill said, trying to build a relationship. It could be words with friends. You get some random person who wants to friend you, and I don't know who that person is, and they want to text and chat with you and that sort of thing. Just say no. Deal with people who you know.
Yes.
Some of this is common sense, and it's easy for us to say in this room we're all successful, but if you're lonely, you're isolated, you're happy for the attention, some of the rationale in your normal way of thinking is going to be out the window. But one of the rules, or one of the things that I've heard victims say after the fact is, I don't know what I was thinking. I got wrapped up. I wasn't thinking straight. And if you have any family members or you yourself get approached with these sorts of things, ask yourself, what do I really know about this investment? Do these oil wells really exist? Do these stocks really exist? Does this company really exist? Ask yourself, would I write a check to somebody, just like y'all are donating and all that other stuff here? Would you do that for people who you've never met before? All you see is a picture. You see an email address, but you don't really know who these people are. You wouldn't go and do business with somebody who you've never met before. Business relationships, that's why organizations like this exist. You trust people, you know them, that sort of thing. I can give them their business. I trust them. But here, the commonsensical sort of stuff of trust just goes completely out the window, and people are just not thinking straight. It's like drinking and driving. So it's just like, you think that you're in control, but you're not, right? So, it's those sorts of things that if you could like, I'd say as far as like advice for family members, it seems invasive, but try to be in touch and communicate with your parents about their finances. It seems pushy. It's like, hey, nobody's passed away yet or anything like that. Why are we talking about the estate? Why are we talking about bank accounts? Why are we talking about X, Y, and Z? Because we want to make sure that no crazy stuff like this happens. And it's not out of greed or anything like that. If I wanted something, I'd ask for it, right? Don't worry, this is not some weird push. No, but it's in this atmosphere. You just need it's a part of vigilance, just like you would with your kids. I want to know what's going on with your bank account, son. Yeah, I'm going to have access to it. If you wanted me to put you some money, I'm going to know what you're spending on, okay? And that sort of thing. I mean, just commonsensical monitoring. It's just critical given the sophistication, the creativity, and just the ferocity of these people indiscriminately. Because just as people on this end are thinking that they're really helping, other people are preying on these people's best intentions. And the only other thing I'd add to what Bill said is kind of like an undercurrent here, which is sort of weird. But what we're also seeing a whole lot of is people not just sending money off to somebody, but unwittingly making themselves an intermediary in a criminal enterprise. We prosecute a lot of people who are money mules, and what are money mules? Are people who they might go and get contacted by the main lottery schemer and say, hey, people are going to be sending you money to your trailer there in Marshall, Texas. You'll be getting checks from people from Canada and California and all these other places, and you can really help me, and you'll get some bit of it if you bundle all this money, either in your bank account or send them off in the magazines or whatever, and send it to me. Well, guess what? Now you have violated federal law. You have done money laundering. We've got a panoply of things that we can go and use to go after people for money laundering. Sometimes they don't know what's going on. Then we won't necessarily charge them on the front end, but we'll send them a target letter or call them and talk to them and say, you need to stop this nonsense. This is illegal, because they might not realize it. But believe it or not, some of them keep doing it anyways, even after they've been told. Well, what's that's happened? I mean, I'll tell you what, I don't care if you're 87 years old. I mean, if you've been warned that you're violating federal law, I mean, we're going to go after you. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry. I mean, if I got one of those letters, I'd stop,
Exactly.
So that was just a couple of things to add that are additional wrinkles to this presentation.
I just have one quick question. On a smaller scale, it can be big, but I sell a lot of stuff. I'm on Facebook Marketplace all the time, where you post stuff for sale and all that. And you keep getting these people, of course. First thing I do is go look at their profile to see if they're real. And it's not like they just added a picture like 30 minutes ago. I'm like, no. So, and then they ask you for your phone number. That's the first thing. They're like, I'm interested in this. Can you please text me or call me at this number or send me your number? What if, that's a small scale compared to this, but that's scammers, right?
Right, and that's how then they're going to start, and then if what they'll do is they'll try to cultivate you into something bigger. They may try to. They're going to try to find ways, probably to learn about you through these phone calls, so that way they can exploit you later on. Places like Facebook Marketplace, and that's how that initial contact happens. And you won't feel it right away. You won't notice it until 3-4 weeks, maybe 6 months from now, until they start, finding a way to do that. Yep.
Is it worthwhile to report telephone numbers or calls that you get? Because several people in my office have had calls that we've got to pay $150 because we missed jury duty.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I got it, I was like, oh my God, did I miss jury duty? I'm thinking I've got to pay $150. And the girl that was sitting there with me said, that's a scam.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy hung up. So, is there any, are you too inundated with this kind of?
But in 2022, a phone number is not as valuable of an investigative piece of information as it was years ago, because there's apps that let you change phone numbers all the time. But things like bank accounts, physical addresses, cryptocurrency addresses, those are the things that we can often exploit to try to get to somebody a little better than a phone number.
On the phone number,
Mhm.
I was amazed that they can clone a phone number and it looks like, example, I work part-time for United Heritage Credit Union. I got a call and it said United Heritage Credit Union. Well, I knew immediately when I answered it by what the person said, this wasn't anybody from the credit union. I mean, I worked there for
Right.
decades.
Yeah.
If it had been someone who didn't work there, someone who wasn't as familiar, because it showed United Heritage Credit Union on their phone, may have given out information. I talked to IT, they can't stop it.
Yeah, email addresses, they'll do the same thing with email addresses, and then when you have a phone number in exchange that's the same as yours, you're kind of lured and thinking, oh, this might be something I'm familiar with or something close, so I'm encouraged to answer.
That is so.
Could I just give, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good, go.
Just a quick shout out and a thank you.
Yes.
That impacted everybody in this room, and you don't know it, but the largest gift, I think single gift in history was to PJC, $19 million. That was in the paper. What wasn't was how that nearly got stolen. And the drama we went through, and I think because of confidentiality, didn't hit the paper, but Secret Service, Department of Education, District Attorney, until the criminal part kicked in, we were fighting a civil, and we were going to lose a big bunch of it. That's funded the Promise Program.
Yeah.
And other scholarships, and that money almost got lost. Wire fraud, a foundation, a dummy foundation that was created with money.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
And thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Bill and Robert, we have certificates for you. We make a donation to Literacy Council. Great, do you have time to stay afterwards? You go along. If there's questions you have, they will be able to stay afterwards. Thank you very much. We're now ready for the Ace of Diamonds. How much money do we have this time?
$847.
That's a useful amount of money. And,
Here.
go ahead.
I'm gonna let you pick it. Your eyes will let you if you read the last three numbers. If not, find somebody younger than me.
Did you just read the last three?
Yeah.
755.
755.
Oh my God, I got it.
You're a good son.
Go ahead. Go on, go draw the ticket.
Let's see how far. If she picks the right one.
Yeah. I know something's wrong.
Yeah.
All right, let us stand for the four-way test of the things we think, speak, or do. First.
Is it true?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
We are adjourned.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, sir.